we do this coverage because, as you said, there are bridges that go down further. We've been very mindful about the bridges that we've crossed. The bridge that we crossed to get over here is very high. We saw the water when the rope comes down along the water. We saw the water starting to come up. Some of the spray was getting on the road, so that's when we knew that we weren't going to have a lot of time here. High tide is happening around right now, so we know that the water levels may go down just a little bit, but that hurricane is still 100, 150 miles out. So as it approaches, those water levels are expected to come up. We're probably going to get out of here in the next 2 or 3 hours because we don't want to get cut off from the mainland. But again, as you go further down, there are more bridges, and as those water levels continue to come up, people aren't going to have the opportunity to flee. So right now is the time to get out. The good news is there's no traffic. Most people have heeded those evacuation warnings. Most people have already made their way to the mainland, so there is no traffic on the roads. It's a very quick drive to get out, but that stretches a long way, almost 100 miles all the way down to the tip. Well, Alex, back to you.
For those of us who have a great affection for the Keys and a very unique place here in Florida, thank you for giving us a peek and seeing that things are okay, at least as of now. Connie Schwartz, appreciate that. Joining me now from Miami Beach, MSNBC weather contributor Sam Champion. Sam, big welcome to you. How quickly is this storm progressing from what you can see?
Hi, Alex. It's moving right along, and we'll get another update here before we get, or by the time we get to the top of the hour. We wanted to set up a shot here. I want to show you an area that's kind of important here, not only in Miami Beach, but also to Miami. If you will, just let me show you this. You're looking out at the open Atlantic right there. This is an area called Government Cut. It is an area that was dredged out. Fisher Island, which is there where the buildings are, if we can move just a little bit to the right behind me, that used to be a part of Miami Beach. But this was cut through to bring those cruise ships and all of the other ships that are bringing all the loads of, what am I trying to say? Cargo ships to those cranes that are right there. Then that's downtown Miami Beach. So the reason I wanted to show you this is the water is about 2 or 3 feet higher than it should be right in this area right now. And it's one of the places we're going to be watching for this storm surge as this storm continues to push toward the north on the western coast of Florida. We'll still get these giant feeder bands of storms and wind, which will push this water higher and heavier into this area. So we're here just to keep an eye on the high water for a moment. Let's tell you what's going on with this storm, because this has been a big deal, and if you haven't been with us all morning long, we need to get you updated on what's happening with the storm. The eye now just pulling off that northern coast of Cuba, an area that they call the Cuba Keys. So we spent most of the evening and night last night and a good part of the morning this morning dragging what was a Category 5 hurricane along that landmass. Now, this is perfect to explain how interaction with land, and we talked about this as a possibility yesterday, interaction with land, any land, with a storm, even a strong storm, can tear it up a little bit and weaken it just a little bit. So now we're dealing with a Category 3, and it has everything to do with the time it is spent dragging along that northern line of Cuba. And that's a lot of damage for the island of Cuba, particularly that northern coast. And they're not used to seeing storms like this drag by. So now we're waiting for that storm to make a turn. And it does look like the eye has started to come off a little bit off that northern coast of Cuba. Let's show you the track for the next couple of days. We're going to see this wind pick up a little bit just like this in gusty form as those bands of rain come in and that wind wraps around this storm, because we're feeding the moisture off the Atlantic right here down into the center of that hurricane. So we'll see more wind like this, and we'll probably see some hurricane force gusts here on Miami Beach, and they could get a little higher than Category 1 hurricane gusts. So there's that 3 storm we're talking about, that eye wall coming right off Cuba. It's not going to be a sharp turn. Some of the models had seen a very sharp turn. It's more of a lean out to the west here. So we know that this water, what we call the straits, is warm now. Last time I looked at it, 87, 89 degree water temperature in those Florida straits. That's the area between the Keys and that northern coast of Cuba. So that is hurricane feeding temperature. Everything's perfect there. With the next time this storm could see anything to disturb it from strengthening will be a little bit of tear up, a little bit of wind shear that can come within 24 hours, but nothing expected between now and then. So we'll probably see this storm re-strengthen, regain its strength to a Category 4 hurricane. Now let's look at the timing here for Florida's coast. We still believe that by Sunday at about 8 p.m., we have a 140-mile-per-hour storm somewhere near Fort Myers and Naples, with the worst side of that storm facing the west coast of Florida, the landmass of Port Florida, and dragging it up toward that Tampa area before finally pulling it on shore. Alex?
Okay, so Sam, before I let you go, this thing is going to sweep through the Florida Keys. Your big concern for the Florida Keys would be the storm surge, I presume. Even if it's a Category 3 and doesn't, extend to a Category 4 and intensify that way, we're still looking at tremendous storm surge, right? That's the problem there.
Yeah, the forecast, remember, this has been a powerful storm that's been driving storm surge with it the entire time. It's a big, massive storm. The eye is very, very large. So I'm not so concerned about making the category line between 3 and 4 here as I am exactly what you just said, letting people know that the storm surge there could be 10, 15, 20 feet at tops. So if you've got a Cat 4 and the winds are stronger and you're pushing 20 feet of water, that's one thing. But if you're pushing 15 feet of water, that's still something that's going to wash over all of the Keys. So there's not an area, there's not an elevation that's close to 15 feet for a lot of these Keys. Yeah. So we're talking about water washing completely over and water, Alex, that will be over my head washing over.
Okay, Sam Champion of Miami Beach. Sam, thanks so much for the comprehensive report from there. We're joined right now by John Copenhaver, former FEMA director for the Southeast region under President Clinton's administration. John, welcome back to the broadcast. We were talking all around the issues around Harvey, and now we're back talking about Irma. Talk about the resources already on the ground in a situation like this, and those that can spring into action as soon as the storm passes.
Alex, the resources are pre-positioned. A lot of the forward elements of FEMA have been through this before. We understand where it's safe to position resources and where it's not safe to position resources. So those areas where there's some relative safety to be able to locate the resources so that they can get there as quickly as possible. They don't want to be a part of the problem, but rather a part of the solution. So there's some art and science that goes into exactly where you locate the resources, but we've got a pretty good idea of where they should be and where they shouldn't be.
All right. So, John, when you look long-term here at what folks are going to have in terms of questions and the availability of FEMA funds and assistance, I was speaking with one of your colleagues earlier, Craig Fugate, and he made the point that FEMA does not fix things that have been a total loss. It will help, but really monetarily, I believe he said the amount $34,000 per family is the maximum amount that FEMA can allot to somebody who's been afflicted by a storm like this. Is that true?
It's not going to be enough to restore many of the people that are tremendously impacted by this storm. People that are in the storm's path, people that are even close to some of the things that happen. I mean, my brother Andy used to say, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, but it counts in hurricanes too. And so the wide path of people that are going to be impacted by this storm, there's simply no way that they're going to be able to be restored to where they were before the storm by government funds. Hopefully, many of these people have insurance. Hopefully, many of these people have made provisions to where they've structurally reinforced their homes, which counts against wind, but unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of reinforcement that you can do against water. But yet, they know something about this. It's not like Florida has not been through some of these kinds of things before. It's just knowing it and doing it sometimes are two different things.
Yeah, very true. Well, Florida does have the greatest amount of coastline in this entire country, so folks do understand what they've got coming their way. John Copenhaver, thank you so much. We'll see you again, no doubt. More than 6 million people ordered to evacuate the flood zones, but that doesn't mean they all hit the road. We're going to have more on that next.
As Hurricane Irma bears down on Florida, MSNBC has all the latest developments.
We know to respect these things. They're big, they're dangerous.
Stay with MSNBC for continuing live coverage. Tomorrow's headlines before they go to print.
I've just been handed some great reporting.
Tomorrow's questions before anyone's asked them.
Could you make an obstruction case?
I think I could.
The 11th Hour with Brian Williams. Weeknights at 11 on MSNBC.
In
doesn't matter how many records I break, how many rings I win. I know I can always be better. There are two of me. There's the person I am and the person I'm driven to be. We're in a constant chase to become the best version of myself. Infinity empowers the drive.
This is a story about mail and packages. And it's also a story about people. People who rely on us every day to deliver their dreams. They're handing us more than mail. They're handing us their business. And while we make more e-commerce deliveries to homes than anyone else in the country, we never forget that your business is our business. The United States Postal Service. Priority, you.
To most people, I look like most people. But on the inside, I feel chronic, widespread pain. Fibromyalgia may be invisible to others, but my pain is real. Fibromyalgia is thought to be caused by overactive nerves. Lyrica is believed to calm these nerves. I'm glad my doctor prescribed Lyrica. For some, Lyrica delivers effective relief for moderate to even severe fibromyalgia pain and improves function. Lyrica may cause serious allergic reactions, suicidal thoughts, or actions. Tell your doctor right away if you have these, new or worse depression, unusual changes in mood or behavior, swelling, trouble breathing, rash, hives, blisters, muscle pain with fever, tired feeling, or blurry vision. Common side effects: dizziness, sleepiness, weight gain, swelling of hands, legs, and feet. Don't drink alcohol while taking Lyrica. Don't drive or use machinery until you know how Lyrica affects you. Those who've had a drug or alcohol problem may be more likely to misuse Lyrica. With less pain, I can do more with my family. Talk to your doctor today. See if Lyrica can help.
First little doggy was a white one. That little birdie was too. Second little doggy.
Leaving a career to follow a calling takes courage. A personalized financial strategy can give you confidence to take the next step. See how access to JP Morgan investment expertise can help you. Chase, make more of what's yours.
More evacuations are being ordered ahead of Hurricane Irma's landfall. In the last hour, Governor Rick Scott asked another 700,000 people to leave. That order, combined with orders in other states, makes this the largest evacuation in U.S. history. If you are getting out, your window of opportunity is very quickly closing. Rain, wind, and surf picking up in South Florida. Already tens of thousands are without power. Forecasters expect the Florida Keys to be hit first, sometime overnight or in the wee hours of the morning. After that, it is the southwest coast for now. That means Fort Myers, Naples, Tampa, Sarasota, all of them in the line of fire. Officials are warning the storm surge could be deadly, up to 15 feet expected in some places. And right now, Irma's moving off of Cuba. It is heading back over the open waters where it is expected to intensify. We do have some breaking news from the White House with President Trump staying on top of these developments. Joining me right now from the White House, NBC's Kristen Welker. Kristen, with a good day to you. Do we know whether the president has spoken with officials at FEMA or other officials in the state of Florida?
Well, no word on phone calls yet, Alex. We do know that the president has gotten regular briefings overnight and throughout the day. And we just learned moments ago, according to a White House official, at 2 p.m., he is going to meet with his entire cabinet. Now, this will be the fourth time that he will have met with his entire cabinet since taking office. They will get briefed on the state of Irma and also that other impending Hurricane Jose by acting DHS Secretary Elaine Duke. FEMA is the leading organization in charge of the hurricane response. Let me read you a little bit from what a White House official tells me. The president and first lady are keeping all the people impacted by Hurricanes Harvey and Irma in their thoughts and prayers and urge everyone to listen to and follow the safety instructions of local authorities. Alex, that last part has really been key to the messaging here at the White House. They want to let the public know they are on top of the response, but at the same time, they're stressing the importance of listening to state and local officials. Now, of course, all of this comes after earlier this week, the Senate and House signed off on a deal. And then, of course, the president just last night signed a bill that will give more than $15 billion to hurricane relief aid. Alex.
Well, that being targeted for Harvey, we know they're going to have to up it considerably with regard to what's happening in Irma. Okay, thank you so much from the White House, NBC White House correspondent Kristen Welker. Always good to see you. Joining me right now, Florida Senior Senator Bill Nelson. Senator, with a welcome to you, sir. Given the powerful history with Florida and hurricanes, how ready is your state?
The state is as ready as it ever has been. You compare it 25 years ago to Andrew, there was no preparation there. Now all the levels of government are working seamlessly together. I have just come from the Hillsborough County Emergency Operations Center, which is in Tampa. FEMA representative is there in the EOC with them. So it's working pretty good. I've been on Interstate 4 going out of Tampa, and people are suddenly realizing now this is a West Coast storm, not an East Coast storm. And thus you're seeing the additional people evacuating from the Gulf Coast, the West Coast of Florida, evacuating away from the coast.
Well, I think it is safe to say, sir, this is a storm that is going to affect both coasts to varying degrees. That is for sure. May I ask you, Senator, who is going to be responsible for providing the bulk of aid to those who need it? And how long will it take to reach folks on the ground?
Well, FEMA has the primary responsibility. And remember, we just running out of money yesterday. Fortunately, they have enough to get them for a month. But come mid-October, we're going to have to pass another emergency supplemental appropriations for FEMA and for local governments.
So, Senator, last question. If folks don't have insurance, what kinds of assistance might they still expect?
It depends on what is going to be the main cause. Is it going to be wind damage to their homes, or is it going to be water? The reason it could be water caused by the wind, if this hurricane goes out into the Gulf, off the western coast of Florida, and goes up the coast, those counterclockwise winds will run that water up into the bays, such as Charlotte Harbor, just north of Fort Myers, or the big one would be shoving the water up into Tampa Bay. You could have a lot of water damage there.
All right, well, Florida Senior Senator Bill Nelson. Senator, very good to speak with you. Thank you for weighing in with your perspective. We appreciate that. Best of luck to you, sir. From there now to Miami, and Mark DeMaria, Acting Deputy Director for the National Hurricane Center. Mark, a big welcome to you. Look, talking with the senator, he's talking about all those folks who are leaving Tampa right now because they thought this was an East Coast storm. Now it's deemed to be more of a West Coast storm. What do you say in terms of the variability between both sides of Florida? Where's going to get slammed? And is that just for certain, or can it still move?
At this point, we're only 24 to 48 hours out, so the track forecast is becoming a little bit more certain. We're getting pretty likely that the East Coast won't get the core of the system. More like it looks like Southwest Florida, then up into the Tampa area later on Sunday and into Monday.
Okay, so Mark, what does that mean for those folks when you say that they're going to get the system? We've heard about storm surge. We've heard about the winds. What are the expectations right now for southwestern Florida?
Well, what we're expecting is the system looks like it's coming off the coast of Cuba right now. And if anybody was expecting that to disrupt the circulation, that certainly didn't happen. We can see the inner core area looks very well established still. So we're expecting the intensification. And really the threats are both wind and surge. We're expecting 10 to 15 feet of surge from Cape Coral area down southward towards Naples. And we're also expecting category wind effects in that area. In addition to that, before that, into the Florida Keys later today and tomorrow.
Okay. Mark, you mentioned the Keys. Before I let you go, what can we expect from the Keys? Are they going to be devastated?
They're going to get Category 3 to Category 4 winds, which can have devastating effects, extremely dangerous, as well as up to 10 feet of storm surge. So we expect considerable impacts in the Keys area later today and into tomorrow.
Acting Deputy Director for the National Hurricane Center, Mark DeMaria. Thank you very much, Mark. I know it's a busy time for you. Miami Beach certainly already feeling the brunt of the hurricane, and this isn't even Irma at full strength. Live coverage continuing all day right here on MSNBC as Hurricane Irma gets a lot closer to making landfall.
As Hurricane Irma bears down on Florida, MSNBC is on the scene, tracking this devastating storm's impact with all the latest developments all weekend long.
We know to respect these things. They're big, they're dangerous.
Stay with MSNBC for continuing live coverage.
Okay, ready? Here's the story.
You gotta run.
We're having a weird night.
Don't miss a thing. Listen to MSNBC on Sirius XM 118.
Stay with me, Mr. Parker.
When a critical patient is far from the hospital must come to the patient.
Stay with me, Mr. Parker.
The AT&T network is helping first responders connect with medical teams in near real time. Stay with me, Mr. Parker. Saving time when it matters most.
Stay with me, Mrs. Parker.
That's the power of and.
You just want to find a used car without getting ripped off? Start at thenewcarfax.com. Show me used trucks with one owner. Right, Tico? Show me the Carfax. Start your used car search at theallnewcarfax.com.
COPD makes it hard to breathe. So to breathe better, I go with a Noro.
COPD tries to say go this way. I say I'll go my own way with a Noro.
Once daily Anoro contains 2 medicines called bronchodilators that work together to significantly improve lung function all day and all night. Anoro is not for asthma. It contains a type of medicine that increases risk of death in people with asthma. The risk is unknown in COPD. Anoro won't replace rescue inhalers for sudden symptoms and should not be used more than once a day. Tell your doctor if you have a heart condition, high blood pressure, glaucoma, prostate, bladder, or urinary problems. These may worsen with Anoro. Call your doctor if you have worsened breathing, chest pain, mouth or tongue swelling, problems urinating, vision changes, or eye pain while taking Anoro. Ask your doctor about Anoro. Get your first prescription free at Anoro.com.
Let's dance, Grandma.
You don't let anything keep you sidelined. That's why you drink Ensure with 9 grams of protein and 26 vitamins and minerals for the strength and energy to get back to doing what you love. Ensure, always be you.
Dental professionals recommend using an electric toothbrush. For an exceptionally fresh feeling, choose Philips Sonicare Diamond Clean. Hear the difference versus Oral-B? In a recently published clinical study, Philips Sonicare Diamond Clean outperforms Oral-B 7000, removing up to 82% more plaque and improving gum health up to 70% more. It's sonic technology cleaning deep between teeth from the most recommended sonic toothbrush brand by dental professionals. Switch to Philips Sonicare today. Philips Sonicare. Save when you buy now.
We're back now with special coverage of Hurricane Irma and a very sober evacuation warning from Florida Governor Rick Scott.
This is a catastrophic storm our state has never seen. Let's remember, we can rebuild your house, you can get your possessions again. We can't rebuild your life, and we can't rebuild your family.
The governor says Florida's west coast can see storm surge up to 15 feet above ground level. He adds that almost 7 million people have left the flood zones. Let's turn now to Miami Beach, which is starting to get some of the impact of Irma, even though the storm is moving in the westerly direction. NBC's Vaughn Hilliard, he's right there in Miami Beach for us. Vaughn, I know there's some concern about a seawall there.
Yeah, Alex, well, much of the focus is going over to the west coast here of Florida. We're here in Miami Beach, and just over on the other side is mainland Miami. But right if we look behind us here, this is where the seawall is, where the wall, this is Biscayne Bay. And we were just over, that's Mount Sinai Medical Center, which is actually where the mayor and city officials are stationed right here at this moment. It's still a functioning hospital at the same time. But we were over there, and the water has risen up to the point where it was starting to go up and over and even into flooding into the parking lot. And I say that because it's just 1 o'clock here, and what much of the focus has been diverted from here, the risk of flooding is still significant here in Miami Beach and in Miami. We're in a light spot right here at the moment, but there's been these rain bands that have come in where it's been almost where you can't even see anything. The winds have gotten up to about 50 miles per hour, and over the course of this next afternoon, we're standing right here on one of the bridges, which there's only a couple of bridges that get you into Miami Beach, which runs about 4 miles up along the coast. And once that these bridges get to a point where you're no longer able to see. They're going to shut down these bridges, and the concern is the point in which these people are no longer able to evacuate. Over the last couple of days, they had mandatory evacuations for everybody in Miami Beach. Most of the hotels are closed here. Most of the residents are gone. But we were just down there a little bit ago, and there's already been an impact from the rainstorm. So the concern is, well, yes, it may not be sustaining those Category 3, Category 4 for storm levels and perhaps the extent of the flooding. There's still a significant risk here to the Miami Beach area. So we'll check in here through the afternoon and as the storm begins to hit here. Alex?
Yeah, a little concerning that the Mount Sinai Hospital is right down the other side of that seawall. Okay, Vaughn Hilliard, thank you so much from Miami Beach. So just how bad could the flooding from Hurricane Irma get? We're going to show you that next.
Is your personal information already being traded on the dark web?
Find out with Experian. Right now, Experian is offering a one-time dark web scan completely free. Go to Experian.com/scan to see if your information is on the dark web. Then learn how Experian can help protect your identity. Act now to help keep your personal information safe. Get your free dark web scan at Experian.com/scan today.
My name is Brian. I'm proud to make dog chow in Davenport, Iowa. Dog chow has been a part of my family's life for over 40 years. My grandfather made it, and now I'm making it. As a microbiologist, I ensure that dog chow leads with high-quality ingredients.
I've seen them all. Big, small, wide, slim, but never two exactly the same. Which is why at Men's Warehouse, we create the perfect fit. Because no matter what size your label says, it's time to like the way you look.
It doesn't matter how many records I break, how many rings I win. I know I can always be better. There are two of me. There's the person I am and the person I'm driven to be. We're in a constant chase to become the best version of myself. Infinity empowers the dream.
On Travel Channel, it's time to solve a mystery. Secrets, intrigue, history. Join Don as he journeys across the world for hidden clues. Howard Hughes flew airplanes and broke speed records. American treasures.
Smokey Bear had become a national celebrity.
And thrilling secrets behind the world's most fascinating wonders. The aliens are coming down. Now we're having fun. All new Mysteries at the Museum. Next Thursday at 9, only on Travel Channel. A global citizen finds a way to contribute. A global citizen brings about change. At MSNBC, we're global citizens, and we invite you to join us. Download the Global Citizen app and take action to provide people around the globe with the food, water, healthcare, and education they need. And when you do, you'll earn points for tickets to September's Global Citizen Festival in New York City.
Be a global citizen.
For freedom.
For justice. For all.
Back now with special coverage of Hurricane Irma making its way to Florida, but not before pounding Cuba's north coast. It made landfall there as a Category 5 hurricane. NBC News has learned of widespread damage to homes and infrastructure. Heavy rains, wind, and coastal flooding is also expected in Havana. And Irma is expected to strengthen before hitting the Florida Keys. MSNBC's Cal Perry is joining me right now. And Cal, I understand you have more on just how bad this flooding can get.
Yeah, you heard from Senator Nelson talking about the nightmare scenario now for Tampa. We've been looking a lot at Miami. The track is now that it's moving west. And people have been looking at Tampa for years. This is from the National Weather Service taking a look at the potential storm surge. We're going to talk about that area right there. This is the Washington Post map. Washington Post did an article in July of this year talking about what would happen if a Category 3, 4, or 5 storm hit Tampa. And I want to show you some points of interest here. just so we're all on the same page here. This is where the hospital is. Look at how low-lying these areas are. This is MacDill Air Force Base right here. That's where CENTCOM is located. This area right here should all be being evacuated now. If you're on these barrier islands, you need to get out of Tampa Bay now because that water is going to push up into the bay and it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to sit right here. It's going to sit right here. It's not going to go back into this bay depending on the power of the storm. 2 studies I want to talk about. In 2010, the local council in Tampa Bay ran this scenario, a storm giving 156 mile-an-hour winds. They said would cut this area in half. All of this would be water. They say 2 million people would be caught in this area, totally flooded out of their homes. It would be cut in half. It would flood this way as well. That's the concern. In 2013, Alex, the World Bank did a study of all cities around the world. Which ones are the most vulnerable in the world? Tampa ranked number 7 in the world, number 1 in the U.S. So if you're in Tampa Bay, this is your number right here. This is what you want to be calling if you want to get out, if you're looking to get out, if you're looking to get to a shelter, call this number. The other thing to keep in mind, there are more than 60 retirement communities in the Tampa Bay area.
Okay, real quickly, can you pull back up that map of the flooding, that area that you showed, CENTCOM and all that's the pink? This was under what kind of condition that Tampa would look like this?
They were saying this under this scenario, 156 mile-an-hour winds. That's what would do this. And all of this, again, would be flooded out. This is Mariners Cove here, a lot of mobile homes there. This is Venetian Islands here and Shore Acres. What's happened is the real estate market has literally exploded in this area. It's a beautiful community. It's like the Keys. It's absolutely gorgeous. The problem is it's basically on sea level.
Okay. Pretty frightening stuff there, and that's 156 mile-an-hour wind. So that's what, is that a Cat 4?
That's between Cat 4 and a Cat 5, but that is why we are going to start to really focus now on Tampa, because as this storm pushes up, depending on where it actually makes landfall, it's going to push all that water potentially into that bay, and that water just sits there. You're familiar with Florida.
Yeah.
That water doesn't go anywhere. And it's a real problem, especially when you're talking about, again, some of these points of interest, right? The hospital here, they're going to have to get that hospital evacuated if it looks like this thing is going to make significant landfall in Tampa. But again, cone of uncertainty, right? So we'll keep an eye on it.
And a few hours to get this done and dealt with. Okay, thank you so much, Cal Perry, for that. That's been it for me this hour, everyone. I'm Alex Witt. Thanks so much for watching. Thomas Roberts picks up our coverage at the top of the hour, live from Miami, with the very latest on the path of Hurricane Irma and what lies ahead for those who did not evacuate to higher ground. Stay with us here on MSNBC.
Their experience is coveted. Their leadership is instinctive. They're experts in things you haven't heard of. Researchers of technologies that one day you will. Some call them the best of the best. Some call them veterans. We call them our team.
When I walked through a snowstorm for a cigarette, that's when I knew I had to quit. For real this time. That's why I'm using Nicorette.
Only Nicorette gum is patented dual-coated technology for great taste plus intense craving relief.
Every great why needs a great how.
I'm Admiral Tom Lynch. In the Navy, we always say the toughest job in the Navy is the Navy spouse. And there's a lot of truth to that. We understand at New Day USA that it takes a team. It takes that man and woman, veteran and spouse, working together, keeping the family together, and we want to make sure that it's a team that we talk to when we come up with a financial solution for that family. If we possibly can, you're going to get that loan at New Day.
It's a new day for veterans who need money for their family.
That's me.
The New Day 100 VA loan lets you refinance your mortgage, consolidate your credit card debt, get cash, and lower your payments an average of $640 a month. We'll even pay for your VA home appraisal.
That's me.
The New Day 100 VA home loan. For veterans who want the security of cash in the bank, it can mean a lot.
That's me.
Call 1-877-776-3063.
Binders, done. Super cool notebooks, done.
That's mom taking care of business. And with the 25-cent event, Office Depot Office Max takes care of mom. Now, all this, just 25 cents each. Taking care of business.
When you look for things, when you search the polished showrooms, the markets, the runway shows. You were looking for me. Beyond luxury and status, beyond capability and utility, you were looking for me. And when you dream of an SUV existing far beyond the ordinary, an SUV steeped in performance, infused with passion, artistic beyond description, you unknowingly dream of me. I am the end of your search, your drive, your dream. I am what you live for. I am the Alfa Romeo Stelvio, the first sport utility vehicle created by Alfa Romeo.
It is 11 a.m. out west, 2 p.m. here in Florida, and I'm in Miami. We've just heard from the governor, Rick Scott, once again over the last couple of hours, delivering this dire warning for people. If you live in South Florida, in an evacuation zone, time is running out for you. We've got the latest tracking for Hurricane Irma, which continues to charge toward the Sunshine State as a Category 3 hurricane. But let's not let that determination of Cat 3 fool you. It's been downgraded, but Irma could still gain strength before it strikes the U.S. coming up in just a few hours. Here in Miami, we're already starting to see weather conditions that have deteriorated over the past hours as outer bands of rain have moved in. So Irma's devastating force flattened several Caribbean islands, killing 23 people. The destructive high winds and the storm surge pounding Cuba today. And of course, the state of Florida is no stranger to hurricanes. 40% of hurricanes hitting the U.S. between 1851 and 2010, they slammed into Florida's coast. That's 114 hurricanes in 160 years. But it's this storm Irma, it's the strongest seen in Florida in 13 years. Now, officials predict millions will potentially be without power here for weeks after Irma strikes.
Once the storm starts, law enforcement cannot save you.
We're already seeing this water pick up considerably.
We don't know where to go. You go to Tampa? Well, Tampa's getting hit hard. Sarasota, we don't know where to go. So I think it was a safe place to stay.
Don't think that, oh, okay, if I live on the eastern side of Florida, I'm home free. You're not. This is a big deal.
Any minute now, we expect to hear from President Trump and his full cabinet. After they receive a full briefing, they are at Camp David, and they've been following Irma. But we have our team of reporters positioned across South Florida with the very latest on this storm, and we want to get right to it because we have the latest update from the National Hurricane Center. And I want to start with NBC weather contributor Sam Champion. He's been in Miami Beach and has that new update. And Sam, explain what we've seen, because there have been millions of people under this forced evacuation, and people are confused now because the tracking of the storm has moved from the East Coast to the West Coast with more concern.
Yeah. Thomas, very important movement to Irma overnight. And this storm stayed on shore on the northern coast of Cuba for most of the night and is still partially, the eye is still partially attached to that northern Cuba coastline area they call the Cuba Keys. Hurricanes don't do well when they interact with land. What I mean by that is they don't stay strong. Land tends to interrupt their entire process, and the longer they stay, the harder and harder it is for them to get together. And that's why we've lost a little strength overnight to this morning. But as that storm pulls away, and it's expected to pull into the Florida Straits, that water is 89, 87 degrees between the Florida Straits. Regain strength, and we expect